So my next question is, what are the forces dividing the city? Why does Toronto look that way? What has caused Toronto to look that way? And this is what has happened to Toronto. The middle income group that I've been talking about, who has an income 20% above or below the average for each of those years, the number of census tracts, neighborhoods has been decreasing, and it took a dramatic fall in the 1990s. Now, a bunch of things happened in the 1990s. We began having conservative governments introduce cutbacks in social programs. The federal government did the same thing in the 1990s. The social housing program was discontinued. In Ontario, social assistance rates were cut by 20% in 1995, October 1995. Unemployment insurance became employment insurance, and less people qualified for it, and you got less money for it. The federal government used to pay 50% of the education bill, 50% of the health bill, 50% of the social assistance bill. In the 1990s, they began not doing that, so both the federal government and the provincial government began passing on charges and fees and all that to others, and having all kinds of cutbacks and benefit programs.
The critical issue still for the inner suburban folks is just access to transit. So they're Kipling and Albion, you're waiting 30 minutes for the Rexdale bus to take you down to the subway, morning, noon, and night. A lot of these folks are traveling across the city to jobs that might be in Scarborough, or people are spending an enormous amount of time in transit when they live in some of these inner suburbs. And some of the studies of people being time-starved are if they have to take their kids to a childcare, drop them off first thing in the morning, then get back on the TTC to get to a job, and then at the end of the day, do that over again. There are many, many, many low-income people who are spending 4 hours on transit a day. So.
And let's not forget that each fare is $2.50 or $3 cash, right? That adds up. So $5, $6 for a round trip or multiple trips. Minimum wage, roughly $10, right?
If you live in the inner suburbs, you're paying taxes. You don't see as much benefit out of those taxes as you see when you live downtown. And a big one is transit, but there's a variety of other things. Their parks and recreational facilities are usually not as well programmed or as actively kept up as downtown is.
So city number 1 is 82% white. City number 3 is only 1/3 white. Now, we are a city with lots of immigrants, right? This is it shows in just those 5 years where immigrants have settled, the vast majority in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Ottawa, Calgary. And that Toronto Star headline I put there, Prime Minister to Cities, drop dead, is simply to point out, not to be partisan here, but the federal government doesn't have, they say that they don't have an urban policy, and they don't help cities. Immigration is a federal policy. Most of immigrants settle in a few metropolitan areas. Those metropolitan areas, their school systems, their housing and all that, the social services need a lot of support, and it isn't coming from Ottawa. That's what that headline refers to there. In our system of government, the city has no independent authority. Okay? In Ontario and most of provinces, cities cannot do anything without the province giving them authority to do it. And likewise, and that includes money. Where do you find money? So who does this hit? And it certainly doesn't bother somebody with a higher income. They don't think of the extra $50 or $100 or something, but it really hurts. Now, those 3 trends, and the problem with those 3 trends is that it's dividing us. The 2.5 million people who live in the city of Toronto, it's dividing us on the basis of our socioeconomic status, our ethnocultural status, and our skin color. The Planning Act says that the city must have a full range of housing, but only condominiums are being built. And it doesn't bother people in authority that that's all that's happening. Any just city demands over and over that all development be at some level in the service of everyone. And that isn't happening right now. And finally, how we govern ourselves, how we make decisions. We used to have Metropolitan Toronto, which is now called the City of Toronto, and the purpose of Metropolitan Toronto was to do some kind of coordinated planning for the expanding Toronto region. But of course now, there's all these other jurisdictions just outside the boundaries of the City of Toronto, and nobody really talks to anybody So these are all serious problems.